0 to 1 tough period. Wow, gosh, it was fascinating. Execute, win, and celebrate. Enable people to do the fitness anywhere, anytime.
Brian, I want to say thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Let's kick off this conversation starting with your work experience, right, which is extremely impressive. Having worked for a number of big, well-known companies, KPMG, Disney, Coca-Cola, I'm just wondering to know which company or which companies were you the most exciting time to work for in terms of personal growth, team, company culture, and challenges that you have to deal with?
Yeah, I have to say it's Disney. Wow, gosh, it's a long time ago. It's quite a while ago. I had two roles at Disney. The first role is basically Asia Pacific consumer product, and that's sort of bringing another new dimension to my sort of career versus my previous experience. I had to basically deal with different countries in the region. And it was fascinating because you really appreciated the way, different way, how people communicate and how people works. So I think you just really learn how to navigate through a different, cultural barriers, communication barriers. So that was a very interesting experience. And my second role is sort of like a startup experience within Disney company. That was back in 2008. We were trying to start up a new business called Disney English. So it was really a 0 to 1 kind of experience, startup experience. So my role was basically involved with putting together the business plan, sort of strategizing the business model, and also figuring out the sort of investment required, the business model, prototyping, all those kind of stuff. So I was working with also the corporate strategy and business department. We worked together, put together the investment proposal, and that investment proposal went to the board of Disney company. At the time, Steve Jobs was also in the board. So the board approved the company. So it was that's how the business get started. So it was very, very different experience from the past. It was more like a startup company. So we put together a proposal. We sort of get a seed money initially to set up 2 learning centers in Shanghai. And it took us about 18 months
Wow.
to launch the first one. And the business, I think, from there, I think because of Disney's content, everything, and I think the business grew very quickly. In 3 years, it grew from like 2 to like close to 30 different learning centers in China, and quickly it became to be sort of a leader in the English learning space. Yeah, so that was sort of my experience at Disney. So I think I found that's something that I learned a lot. And building a startup company and building up a team, setting up an infrastructure and a system, and a lot of times you just have to learn, as you go. So I feel that's a pretty intensive learning experience for me. Yeah.
On LinkedIn, you mentioned that your career bounced between places in the US and China. I'm just curious to know more about, if you can summarize in a few points, the differences between working in different work cultures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the first of all, I think the mindset is a bit different because of the stage of the country. I think China, it's probably now considered to be a more developed country, but still, I think the market size and market potential is much bigger. And so I recall at Disney, we used to grow like, clearly, at least double digit. And we're talking about like 30% year-over-year growth. So I think it's definitely the one of the fast growing market, around the world. So I think the mindset is a bit different. So it's all about driving the business growth. Versus in the US, I think the market is probably more mature, and usually people are talking about low single digit growth. So it's more talking about ROI, optimizing the business, best practice. So it's a bit sort of a different kind of mindset. One is a market share first, and the other is more about optimization and profitability growth. Grow at a it's sort of profitable growth. So that's one aspect. The other aspect maybe has to do with also the type of market we're in. I think I feel like the pace and tempo in Shanghai, I think is faster than in the US. I think because people here tended to more aspire for the career growth. They spend a lot of time in work. So I feel like average work hours here is longer than in the US. In the Western country, I think everything is probably more managed, more organized. So I think not that people there don't work as hard. I think it's just I think the work hours, everything is probably not as heavy as here. So those are probably two sort of different aspects. Yeah.
Actually, an interesting thing about the working hours, right? Definitely people work here longer hours for sure, right? Because of the competition, because of the speed. But then you're coming with the international background and working for the international companies, but still in China. So how do you actually manage to make sure that you keep up with the pace and as well you keep the value of the international companies that you work for?
Yeah, I mean, it's interestingly, I mean, for international company, they have a culture, right? But I found that I worked at Coke, I worked at Disney, but I think Coke China, Disney China is still a little bit different from, Coke and, Disney in the US because of the market that we are in. So I think you just have to really be sort of act local. So I think that's what we have to do, as you mentioned, because we're in the local market. That's a competition that we're facing, and also the people here is different. The workforce, on average, is younger here, and people, the competition amongst the people is actually also higher. So I think that's sort of, that's different. Yeah.
One more question regarding your vast work experience. You work and served as the CFO for a number of startups and growth stage ventures. What are the takeaways that you carried for yourself working for fast-growing companies?
Yeah, I think the first one is sort of be agile, and that has to be a trait of a startup company. While you have a strategy, you have to stay focused, but at the same time, you have to constantly monitor the market trend, everything. And when you start up the company, usually you sort of have a prototype, product or concept. So you have to be really agile to make sure you're constantly searching for your product market fit. So I think that's the first important thing. And secondly, I think it's very important to find and have the best team as much as you can, because as a startup company, I think you definitely provide a stock incentive. But I found, based on my experience, I think ideally you want the people who are not just be driven by the stock incentive. I think it has to be, you have to find the people who are more, I would say, mission driven. I think that's probably the most ideal situation. The people who are self-motivated, I think that's really very important. So I think first you have to really be agile. You have that kind of mindset, and secondly, I think you really wanted to be surrounded by really top talent people, and not only be top talent, but also the people who are very self-motivated. And I think third thing is also probably very important is, I think, execution focus. And also, I personally believe execute, win, and celebrate. I think it's very, very important to build a team culture, because when you work at a startup company, usually a small team, right? So I think you have to constantly, I think, recognize the team's hard work and the little accomplishment. You don't have to score big, but I think it's important to you keep executing well and you win, and then you celebrate. I think that's sort of a virtuous circle for building up the team culture. So I think that's really, really important, mindset and people, and focus on execution. Yeah.
Great tips. I will put it as the takeaway for this interview for sure. Thank you for sharing. So now you're the CEO, Greater China and Korea at Les Mills. My first introduction to Les Mills happened a couple of years when, at that time, my girlfriend took me to Pure, and it was that trip. And I was so impressed because it was interactive, it was super cool and new experience. And at the same time, you exercise, you put in efforts, right? Mm-hmm. And you can also observe what's going on around, which is pretty exciting. So, but I think not many people actually know that that stuff is built by Les Mills, right? So what's Les Mills? What's the story behind the company? How did it enter Asia, China? And how did you end up working as the CEO of Les Mills?
I think the Les Mills is a company with sort of long history. So, I think the company started in 1968. I mentioned about finding the mission-driven people. I think Les Mills is really the company. It's a mission-driven company, and the mission of Les Mills company is to create a fitter planet. So I think it has a long history. But in China, we're still a young team. Les Mills entered China, I think in 1998, basically through a distributor. So you can find the Les Mills program in China, but it wasn't really operated by a Les Mills team. The Les Mills team formally established its subsidiary company in China in 2014. Mm-hmm. So now it has been in China for 8 years. So I joined the company as a CFO, and then later on they made me to be the CEO of the company. So now I'm leading the basically Les Mills China team, and we actually cover not only just mainland China, but also Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, as well as the Korea market. It's also managed by China team here.
Interesting.
So that's sort of my experience. So I think Les Mills company, I think it's definitely a sort of content IP company. I would say it's probably the number one content IP in the fitness industry. So I think we work with about 2,000 different gyms and clubs in China today. We have about close to 10,000 Les Mills certified instructors. And on our social media web page, we have about 3 million followers here in China.
Douyin?
Yeah, different social media. Douyin is one of them, and also Xiaohongshu. Yeah, we and Bilibili as well. Yeah. So we're all in the social media platform. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, healthy lifestyle, trainings, group training, lots of other different kind of sports are on the rise in China. People think about it and engage way more actively in recent years. That's definitely we can see. So I just want to know more about the industry insights, what's going on, what's trendy, and where it's all heading.
Yeah, I mean, industry-wise, I think it's right now in China. I think it's about 70 million people who regularly exercise. So that's basically 5% of total population. Mm-hmm. So if you compare, if you're talking about the fitness population penetration level, China on average is still fairly low in comparison to US, UK, and Germany. Those countries are probably somewhere between 15 to 20%. So we're at like 1/4 of that level. But I think China is an interesting market, as you know, Marion, having lived in China for a long time. China is a market basically with a world of difference in different regions. So in the top tier cities like metro cities like Shanghai, Beijing, and Shenzhen. So those cities, I think if you look at 大众点评, you can find a lot of gyms and boutique studio and workshops, right? So I think in those markets, I think it's not that far from, all those more mature markets, but it's those like tier 2, tier 3 cities and below. I think the people's awareness of fitness is still fairly low, which for us it indicates a tremendous growth room for us. And I think it's still a very young market, and there are different models. And there's a traditional gym model, which has swimming. You have a private training section. You also have the group fitness classes, and you also have the boutique studio, which solely focus on group fitness. And you also have a private training workshop. So there's a different format, just like a retailers. You have a supermarket, you have boutique shops, and you have a lot of small, mom and pop shops. So it's sort of same kind of structure. In my view, I think they all exist for a reason. So they're gonna all exist, and they're gonna attract different type of people. So I think, as I said, there are a lot of room. There are different formats. And what another thing is about technology, because Les Mills is a content company. So I think technology plays a very, very important role in our future. So we not only license the content to those gyms offline, but we also use the technology way to help them to optimize their operation. For example, if you go to a gym, right? People usually go to a gym after work or during the lunchtime. So there's like a heavy peak time where the gym is very full. But the rest of the day is actually pretty empty, right? So we just launched a hardware, what we call the virtual fitness box, Les Mills virtual fitness box. That's something that's solely developed by us. It's sort of a China local innovation. So we basically work with a hardware company, and we design the product, and we put the Les Mills content on those products, and we introduce some of the kind of slick features. It allows the hardware really allows like auto download, auto scheduling, those kind of slick features for gyms. So we launched it about 2 months ago, and we introduced at our industry show, IWF industry show. It was very well received. So we're already testing the product with some of the potential customer. So I think that's the one innovation that we have made. And the other exciting thing is we launched our body combat VR product with Pico 4. That was just announced in September last month. And Body Combat was one of the top IPs of Les Mills. And we actually had a version of VR, Body Combat VR product on Oculus, on MetaQuest. It was very, very well received. It's actually scored the highest amongst the fitness category. So we are able to bring that game into China, working with Pico team, and it's Chinese version. So we have a local Chinese trainer. It's all in Chinese, and so it's basically a localized version. So I think there are a lot of opportunities. So smart virtual fitness box, and the Body Combat VR. Those are two sort of our local innovation. So I think that's really exciting. That's also part of our strategy about digitalization. So we not only introduce the hardware products, but we also license the content and working with the big platforms like Migu, like Huawei, those big platforms, we license content to them. So those programs are all launched in Huawei Fitness app, and as well as the Migu's app. So I think we're very excited about that. And we also work with OTT platform as well, like TCL, Haixin, and we're on Sony TV as well. Yeah.
That sounds exciting. Where can we experience it? It's already in the market, so we can go to the gym, and some gyms already using it.
Yes. Yeah. Like Wales, in Shanghai. They use a smart fitness box, and there's some customer in Shandong, some customer in Suzhou. They are using that solution already. So that really helped them to sort of optimize, because you basically off-peak time, you just schedule the classes using this hardware. When the time comes, it's just automatically play the program, and then you basically can do a small classes. You don't need to use trainer. I think that's sort of the beauty of that model, leveraging the technology.
I want to try it out. I saw the ad and it was like really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you for sharing. I will definitely schedule time to go there. So I think the technology that you are talking about right now, right? So it was kind of also a result of COVID impact, right, on the industry, because it's one of the way as well to make it accessible for people who physically probably can't be at the gym at a certain time, right? So I think this problem is still not going away, and I think COVID bring other challenges and other problems, right, for the industry. If you can talk a little bit to that direction. So what are the changes happening because of COVID now in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, COVID definitely has a huge impact on our industry, because of, it's almost last for 3 years for us in China, and it's sort of on and off, as you know, having lived in China. So a lot of our gyms are really facing kind of difficulty in terms of cash flow or those kind of things. So in the short term, I think it's really a tough period for the industry. But people are still going to the gym. So overall, I think in the longer term, I think it's probably just going to wash out some of the non-efficient operators. So I think it's going to be consolidating, and I think the format is still going to evolve. As I mentioned earlier, I think if you look in the overall big picture, China still has a long way to go in terms of fitness. It's still a very young market. So I think I'm really confident at the potential of this market. So hopefully the things will continue improving, and I think more and more people will go back to gym. But at the same time, I think there are a lot of at home fitness solutions there. We talk about we talk about the VR product, and we also I think the virtual fitness box actually it's also right now it's an enterprise solution, but it's actually potentially could be a consumer solution as well. So I think that's also an opportunity for at home solutions, at home fitness. And the reason we introduced the smart fitness box is it's actually not only for gyms, but also can work for corporate and also work for hotel. So we wanted to provide a solution that can enable people to do the fitness anywhere, anytime. Yeah.
And also, I think the quite interesting question, you already mentioned a little bit about the localization, right? As the foreign company, definitely you need to localize and play the local rules, right? So, and I guess the content that you create for for gyms, right, outside of China, and content that you create here is supposed to be different. So what are the differences, and how much you need to adjust to fit the local market?
Sure, that's a very good question. I think we definitely found overall China market is younger, and also I think the people's we have to raise awareness of the fitness, and also in terms of experience of the fitness, because a lot of people who just started to do the fitness, so I think they are not the heavy users. So we feel like we need to develop more content, more tailored towards the beginners. So it's sort of, first of all, beginner level content. That's the first thing. The second thing we found, like Chinese people tend to like sort of a slower pace type of program, because Chinese people, they do Tai Chi or those kind of things. So we developed a local program here, like a stretch program and yoga program. And so those are probably a more popular program amongst the Chinese people. So I think that's something that we're working on, and we just started this year. So we film a lot of content for China, and we also developed some content for kids as well. Yeah.
Interesting. That kind of content built only by the local team, right?
Yeah, by local team and for local market. Yeah.
Are there any standards that you're still trying to keep, or you have a lot of flexibility in that sense?
Yeah, we have some flexibility, but in terms of quality level, I think we still work with international team to make sure our quality level is line with the global standard. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And the last one to finish up this conversation, any sneak peek that you can share that's something that's really exciting you're working on at the moment at Les Mills that we might expect in coming months?
Well, I think we were discussing about our own big sort of a strategic initiative. I think one of the things that we are talking about is sort of launching, we call it Les Mills China Academy. And right now we doing a lot of training for instructors, but we feel like we can do more, not only just for training for the instructor, but also for the fitness industry. So we want to expand that and launch sort of, a brand name as Les Mills China Academy. We want to make Les Mills be sort of an industry standard. So that's something that we are very excited to work on. The another thing is we have we sort of Les Mills pretty unique in terms of business model right now. I think all business primarily is a 2B type of business, but we do have a 3 million social media followers. How do we sort of right now they are sort of our social media followers on social media page. How do we convert them into our sort of our own private pool, so that we can monetize those pool. Right. So I feel like there is a great potential there as well.
So there might be some B2C solutions coming up?
Yes. So I think there are some B2C things. Today, I think we are selling, we do have our own like Weixin Sangcen, Weixin like shopping, D2C, like D2C commerce stuff. We sell our equipment, some of our products, brand products or co-branded products. But potentially, I think once we do a better job about operating that private pool, there is a bigger room for us to grow in that area. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Brian. So I'll be looking forward to those updates that are coming up soon from Les Mills. And for those who also want to know what's happening in the fitness industry, please find Brian probably on LinkedIn. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Please like, share, comment, and we'll see you next time.
Sure. Thank you, Mary. It's great talking to you.